Welcome all to Department of Collegiate and Technical Education. Today we are going to discuss about the course Electrical Power Generation. In that the unit 2, that is nuclear, diesel and gas turbine power plants. So in this, the main purpose of studying this course is to know the different types of electrical power generation method and their types, their applications and their merits and demerits, and their comparison with the types of different power plants. So this is the second session on the nuclear power plant. So in the first session we have discussed the basic working diagram of a nuclear power plant and their schematic diagram and function of each components and the site selection factors required for a nuclear power plant and the multiple choice questions of the basic nuclear power plants. Today we are going to discuss in the second session of the main working principle of a nuclear power plant and their components and functions of each components. The contents included in this topic is topic 1, working and construction of a nuclear power plant, 2, main components of a nuclear power plant, 3, multiple choice questions, 4, answers of multiple choice questions. First we go for the first topic, that is working and construction of a nuclear power plant. Here we will see the construction of a nuclear reactor. So in this we see that the nuclear reactor consists of control rods, reflector, shielding, moderator, coolant, fuels and neutron detector. So in the reactor it will consist of mainly fuels and a control rods. So there is a nuclear fission is going to be takes place in the inside this nuclear reactor. A control rod is provided in order to control the neutron liberation in the reactor. That is, it will avoid the melting of the neutrons and also it avoids the disintegration of the coolant. So surrounding this, a moderator is constructed with a concrete construction, which will help us to reduce the speed of the neutrons during the nuclear reaction. The function of the moderator is to slow down the movement of the neutrons. Above this, a shielding construction has been made. Above this, a reflector is provided in order to reflect the neutrons back to the reactor. So it will avoid the leakage of the neutrons in the nuclear reactor. Above this reactor, a shielding has been provided, which is nothing but an concrete construction. So it will avoids the escaping of the radioactive emissions like alpha, beta and gamma. So this is the construction of a nuclear reactor. Inside this nuclear reactor, a channel or a tube has been constructed so that a coolant has to be passed in this tubes, that is inlet and outlet for the coolant. So this is the next one is the neutron detector. So neutron detector will detect the leakage of the neutrons in the reactor. So this is the basic components of the nuclear reactors, that is control rods, moderator, reflector, shield, fuel, coolant and neutron detector. The main function of this nuclear power plant will be done in the nuclear reactor. The nuclear reactor is the main component in a nuclear power plant. So this is the construction of an nuclear reactor. The next is the main component of a nuclear power plant. The main component of the nuclear power plant is the nuclear reactor, heat exchanger, prime mover, steam turbine, alternator, condenser and cooling system. Next, we will see the function of a one by one. We will discuss the functions of each component of the nuclear reactor. As I was already told, nuclear reactor is the main component in the nuclear power plant. So the nuclear reactor is nothing but a furnace in which nuclear fuel is subjected to nuclear fission. The nuclear reactor consists of the following components. Number 1, fuel rods, moderator, control rods, reflector, shielding and coolant. So these are all the components of a nuclear reactor as we are observed in the figure. Very first is the fuel rods. What is this fuel rods? Which is nothing but an uranium-235, uranium-233 and uranium-239 are used as a nuclear fuels in the nuclear power plant. So the fuel uranium-235 is naturally available, where other two fuels are formed in the nuclear reactor during the fission process to form uranium-238 and thorium 232 due to the absorption of the neutron without fission. Only by the absorption in the nuclear fission, the uranium 238 and the thorium 232 will be formed. The next component of the nuclear reactor is moderator. A moderator is used to slow down the neutrons released during fission. That is, the function of the moderator is to slow down the neutrons released during the fission, which is at the high speed can be converted into a slow down neutrons by the moderator. The material used of the moderator is graphite, heavy water or beryllium are used as a moderator. The next component of the reactor is shielding. So the purpose of using shielding is to give the protection against radioactive emission like alpha, beta and gamma during the process of fission in reactor. The next component is control rods. The control rods does the following functions. That is, to start the nuclear chain reaction when the reactor started from the cold, and it also shut down the reactor automatically under emergency condition. So this is the two functions done by the control rods. The chain reaction should be maintained at steady state condition at required level. So the control rods is also maintains the steady state condition of the chain reaction. Also, the control rods prevents the melting of fuel rods, disintegration of the coolant and destruction of reactor, as the amount of energy released is enormous. The material used for a control rods are carbon, boron or hafnium are used as a control rods. The next component of the reactor is reflector. It is necessary to conserve the neutrons to reduce the consumption of fissile material, keep size of reactor small, conserve, and also to reduce the loss of escape neutrons. The reactor inner surface is surrounded by material reflects the escaping neutrons back to core. This material is called reflector. The next component is a coolant. The purpose of the coolant is to transfer the heat produced inside the reactor. This heat carried by coolant is used in the heat exchanger for power generation. Next, we move the components of the nuclear power plant, that is heat exchanger. The heat exchanger utilizes the heat carried by coolant from the nuclear reactor to generate steam from water present in the water tank. That is, it will exchange the heat generated in the nuclear reactor by the coolant to the steam generator. That is, it converts in the heat exchanger, the water is converted into a steam and is passed to the steam turbine. That is, here the coolant is nothing but water which is sent by the water tank. The next component is the prime mover. Prime mover is nothing but a steam turbine. The prime mover is used in the nuclear power plant is steam turbine. The steam turbine converts the energy of steam into mechanical energy. Okay, whatever the steam coming from the heat exchanger is passed to the steam turbine. So the steam turbine starts rotating, thereby it will generate the mechanical energy. Next component of the nuclear power plant is the alternator. The alternator is coupled with the turbine on the same shaft of the steam turbine. The steam turbine provides mechanical energy to the alternator. The alternator converts mechanical energy into electrical energy. So the generation of the electrical energy takes place in the alternator. The next component is the condenser and cooling. The purpose is the steam coming from the steam turbine is at low pressure and the low temperature, is condensed in the condenser and converted to water again in the condenser. Using the cooling system, the condensed water is further reduced in the cooling tower. Next, move on to the next topic, that is a nuclear power plant multiple choice questions. So, still now we have discussed in the second session about the nuclear reactor and their components, along with that the main component of a nuclear power plant and their functions. So related to this, a multiple choice questions are: number 1, moderator in nuclear plants is used to A. reduce temperature, B. extract heat from nuclear reaction, C. control the reaction, D. cause collision with the fast moving neutrons to reduce their speed. The answer is D. cause collision with the fast moving neutrons to reduce their speed. To reduce the speed of the neutrons, a moderator is used. Second MCQ, that is multiple choice question, is: the most commonly used moderator in a nuclear plant is A. Heavy water. B. Concrete and bricks. C. Graphite and concrete. D. Graphite. The commonly used is D. Graphite. The answer is D. Graphite. Third, the commonly used material of shielding is A. Lead or concrete. B. Lead and tin. C. Graphite or cadmium. D. Thick galvanized sheets. The answer is A. Lead or concrete is used as a material for shielding, commonly used. Fourth, the main interest of shielding in nuclear reactor is protection against, choices are A. X-rays, B. infrared rays, C. A, P and Y rays, D. neutrons and gamma rays. The answer is D. neutrons and gamma rays. So in order to give the protection against of neutrons and gamma rays, shielding are used. Fifth, reflector in nuclear plants is used to A. return the neutrons back into the core. B. shield the radioactivity completely. C. check pollution. D. conserve energy. The answer is A. return the neutrons back into the core. So for that purpose reflector is used. Sixth, boiling water reactor uses the following as moderator, coolant and working fluid. Choices are A. ordinary fluid, B. heavy water, C. molten lead, D. none of the above. The answer is A. ordinary fluid. So ordinary fluid is used as a working fluid in the boiling water reactor. A. ordinary fluid. Next, seventh, which of the following can be used as a coolant in nuclear plant? A. light or heavy water, B. molten lead, C. carbon dioxide, D. freon. The answer is A. light or heavy water. The coolant used in a nuclear power plant is either light or heavy water. Next, eighth, the function of control rods in nuclear plants is to A. control temperature, B. control radioactive pollution, C. control absorption of neutron, D. control fuel consumption. Answer is C. control absorption of neutron. The function of a control rods in a nuclear plant is to control absorption of neutron. Next, ninth, for economical operation of a nuclear plant, A, choices are A, used fuel should be reprocessed, B, moderator should be used, C, coolant should be employed, D, control rods should be used. The answer is A, used fuel should be reprocessed for an economical operation of a nuclear plant. Next, 10th. The presence of reflector in a nuclear power plant results in A, increased production of neutrons, B, complete absorption of neutrons, C, controlled production of neutrons, D, decreased leakage of neutrons. The answer is D, decreased leakage of neutrons. That is, the presence of reflector in the plant is to decrease the leakage of neutrons. This is the answers for a multiple choice questions. For a first it is D, second D, third A, fourth D, fifth A, sixth A, seventh A, 8 C, and for ninth is A and 10th for D. Thank you.